that's just a relative position change. So if we were tilted forward, a posterior pelvic tilt would mean that we're bringing the top back relative to the bottom. If we're already here, it would be bringing it back further. So this is all dependent on where you start. Greg Chaplin here, physical therapist and strength and conditioning specialist. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about posterior pelvic tilt, excessive lumbar flexion, and why cues like to tuck your tailbone or to flatten your back down to the table or floor can often be unhelpful. Then at the end of this video, we're going to go through 2 corrective exercise solutions that you can use if this is a problem that you're having. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So those of you who are watching this video probably know what a posterior pelvic tilt is, but just to review, a posterior pelvic tilt is when the top half of the pelvis moves back relative to the bottom half of the pelvis. And so it's going to look a little bit like this. And really that's just a relative position change. So if we were tilted forward, a posterior pelvic tilt would mean that we're bringing the top back relative to the bottom. If we're already here, it would be bringing it back further. So this is all dependent on where you start. Now, the people who tend to run into issues with an excessive posterior pelvic tilt are typically starting in a position where they're already tilted back and they're biased towards positions of sacral counter-nutation, so that's a tailbone that's tucked under, ilium external rotation, so a little out flaring here, and femur external rotation as well. So usually when we're trying to give these cues about to tuck your tailbone or to flatten your back down into the surface, we're going after sacral counter-nutation. Now, if you're someone who already has sacral counter-nutation, then you probably don't need to be cued further into this position. Now, over time, if you're using these cues over and over and over again, this can actually result in some discomfort in your back, and you might have to undo the pattern that's created by doing these cues over and over and over again. So that's what we're going to go through in this video. Now, folks that are biased toward this counter-nutated position and are using these cues over and over again often have a couple of very predictable limitations in their hip motion. These folks often have limitations in hip flexion and internal rotation. The reason for this limitation is that they often have a lower compression here in the inferior glutes and the deep hip external rotators, and this is going to limit both the flexion and the internal rotation. And they often also have increased activity of the rectus abdominis muscle here, which is also going to steal a little bit of hip internal rotation. If you found this video useful so far, make sure to like it, leave any questions you have down below in the comments, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when I upload a new video. So the position that we're going after under these circumstances would be to get a little bit of nutation of the sacrum, a little bit of internal rotation of the ilium bones, and internal rotation of the femur relative to the starting position. So let's go through those 2 corrective exercise strategies now and talk through what you want to look out for. So this activity, you're going to first make sure that you have a little bit of space between the table and your hand. So if you're someone that's been using the cue to push your back down into the table, you want to think about letting the back lift off the table so that you have a little bit more pressure on the base of your spine and the top of your sacrum instead of the lumbar spine. So if you're starting off with your back already down, think about relaxing your abdominals and just letting your pelvis roll forward ever so slightly. You should feel contact now in the sacrum. Now what you're going to do, you do a nice long exhale. You're going to feel your outer abs come in a gentle way without squeezing the center abs, and you're going to still have that space between the table and your hand. Now from this position, we can take a breath in. You're going to exhale, lift the leg up, and then you're going to inhale on the way back down. And then we can exhale, and we'll do the same thing with the opposite side. Now once you get the hang of this, you can dig down with the opposite heel from the leg that's lifting. So you're going to exhale, lift the knee up, inhale to return, and then alternate. Digging down with the downside heel, lifting up with the opposite knee as you exhale, inhale to return. Now this next corrective exercise strategy, you're going to get into this all-fours position with the hips a little less than 90 degrees. You're going to relax your glutes, but you're going to create a little bit of tension in your low back here. You're going to push with your hands towards that 90-degree hip position. And if you're doing it right, you should feel a little bit of a gentle tension here at the bottom of the pelvis. Then you're going to come back to the starting position. So we're going to exhale as we go back. And then we're going to inhale to return. Using the hands to push backwards. keeping a little bit of gentle tension in the low back so the back stays straight. What you want to avoid here is any excessive rounding of the back, so that's going to look like this. And you want to stop the motion at whatever point you feel like you run out of hip motion and the back starts to want to move. So if you push back and then you feel the back wants to round, that is going to be where you stop this activity. So for those of you who are a little more advanced, an activity that would also help restore some of this motion would be like a deadlift or a staggered stance deadlift. So if you're familiar with that, that would be a good way to get around this. But the key is make sure that the back stays relatively straight and all the motion's happening from the hip. So I hope that video made sense. If it didn't, leave questions down below in the comment. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll know when I upload a new video. And until next time, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.